Hey guys, how's it going? It's Danconia and welcome back to the Overwatch League Roundup, Stage 2, Week 2 preview. Okay, as a little notice, you might hear that things have changed slightly. I now have a full-blown XLR microphone with a audio interface, so I'm hoping that the audio quality on this channel is taking a big step forward. That's what this was for. I haven't been happy with the audio quality for a while. I still haven't had the means to change that. But now, hopefully, we can have some better audio quality throughout. But let's move on to our fixtures for Week 2 of the Overwatch League Stage 2. And this one could be an interesting week, because we've got some tight fixtures that might give us some surprises. Although, I wouldn't expect too many surprises from the top teams. I think San Francisco, Vancouver and New York have got quite easy weeks, but just below that it could be quite interesting. So first up on Friday, April the 12th. Also, if you want the fixtures and the standings, please go to the previous video, the Stage 2 Week 1 results video. I can't include the standings in this as well. There are so many fixtures. It's actually ridiculous. At midnight BST on Friday, April the 12th, or 1 AM in Europe, we have the Paris Eternal taking on the Florida Mayhem. So this, I would be surprised if Paris lost this, to be quite honest. Florida still look very all over the place, shall we say. I really don't see Florida winning much right now. They're in a state of rebuilding, I would say, and it's going to be a tough stage for Florida, but I would expect Paris to win this one. At 1:45 AM BST, or 2:45 in Europe, we have the New York Excelsior taking on the Washington Justice. New York Excelsior's A team versus New York Excelsior's dumping bin. Sorry Washington, I had to. I would not expect Washington to get anything out of this match. They may take the odd map off Excelsior, but I can only see Excelsior winning this one. At 3:30 BST, or 4:30 in Europe, we have the Vancouver Titans taking on the Seoul Dynasty. So, this is an interesting one, isn't it? A rematch from the semi-finals of Stage 1. Yep, Vancouver will win that, I think. I'm sorry, I don't see anyone beating Vancouver right now. If anyone beats Vancouver at the moment, then it goes down as a shock in my books. Maybe it will be the shock. Who knows? At 5:15 AM BST, or 6:15 in Europe, we have the Toronto Defiant taking on the Philadelphia Fusion. This is an interesting one. Toronto had an up and down week last week. Philadelphia, they're going to be able to play their DPS more than they were last stage. Carpe looked decent again, as he always does on Widow and McCree. It's a very difficult one to call. I would go Toronto. I think Toronto's tank line might edge this, simply because they have more flexibility than Philadelphia's tank line. Yeah, I'll go for Toronto with that one. On Saturday, April the 13th, at midnight BST, or 1 AM in Europe, we have the Los Angeles Valiant taking on the Atlanta Reign. Oh dear. Atlanta. You looked quite shocking last week, I'm not going to lie. Yes, you went 2-0 up against the Boston Uprising, but then you got reverse swept, and then you got absolutely stomped on by Spitfire. We're not seeing the Atlanta we saw in Stage 1. Whether that's just because we don't have DeFran anymore, I don't know. But there are a few new players to work into that Atlanta team. Valiant, however, they're also in the rebuilding stage. They have a new coaching lineup, more than they do new players. This will be a tight game, I think. I think this will be a tight game, and if anything, I might actually back Valiant to win this one. Simply because their roster is stable, over the fact that Atlanta's isn't. It'll be really close, I think, that one. But I think Valiant might get through on that one. Just. It's a bold claim. I'm sorry, Atlanta, but it's a bold claim. 1:45 AM BST, or 2:45 in Europe, we have the Boston Uprising taking on the Hangzhou Spark. Hangzhou have been showing us some really weird looks lately. Especially last week against Vancouver, when they played Orisa solo tank on first offense of Hanamura. When the Orisa really wasn't protecting much. Yeah, I've got to go for Boston. They're more stable than Hangzhou are. We don't know what Hangzhou are going to turn up. If it's the Hangzhou we saw early last stage, then Hangzhou win it. But I think I'm going to go for Boston here. 3:30 a.m. BST or 3:30 in Europe. We have a 3:30 in Europe, 4:30 in Europe. Can't be the same time in both places. We have the Guangzhou charge taking on the San Francisco Shock. Another rematch. Oh dear, Guangzhou. I think this might be a 4-0 for Shock. Again, Guangzhou, one of those teams that look like they're really all over the place right now. And not much stuff to actually write home about Hangzhou right now. They are kind of all over the place in terms of team comp, their communication, the way they're working. We're certainly not the Guangzhou we saw from stage 1. They haven't been able to bounce back. After losing initially to Vancouver, then they lost to Shock, then they lost to Vancouver again, and they haven't been able to bounce back from that. They're on a current ratio of 1 map win to 14 map losses, which is horrific. They need to change that, but I don't see that changing against Shock. So, yeah, I have to go for a Shock win. At 5:15 in BST or 6:15 in Europe, I'll get there in a minute. Chengdu Hunters taking on the Shanghai Dragons, the Battle of China. This is an interesting one. It depends what look we see from Shanghai. They had a tough week 1, but this is a winnable game for Shanghai. But Chengdu, I don't like betting against Chengdu Hunters right now. Simply because the meta favours them. Big time. So I don't know where this will land, but I would think Chengdu will see a win here. I think Shanghai might take them close though. So at 8 PM BST or 9 PM in Europe, we have an absolute belter. I think this possibly is game of the week. It's the London Spitfire taking on the Philadelphia Fusion. It's a rematch of last year's grand final. Two teams that really haven't settled yet. Although London looked good against Atlanta, but that was against a unorganised and quite hectic Atlanta squad from last week. I don't know. I don't know about this one. It's difficult. If Spitfire win this, I think I can start saying I expect Spitfire to be in the stage playoffs. Not that I think, I expect. But if they lose this, I don't know what effect mentally that'll have on Spitfire, because Spitfire they run on momentum, Spitfire, heavily. And they might just roll into this match after the 4-0 against Atlanta and beat Philly Fusion. But I have this, even though I'm a fan of the team, a mistrust of London to get the job done. It's simple as that. Fusion, they're fairly up and down at the moment. They went 1-1 last week, but they did play Excel, didn't they? If I remember rightly, they played Excel last week. I will just check. Yeah, they got 4-0'd by Excel. Ay. And they dropped him back to Florida, but London can't talk. It's going to be a really close game. It's going to be a really, really close game, but I'm going to edge Fusion for it. Oh, I hate doing that. But yeah, I'm going to edge Fusion for that one. At 9:45 in BST, or 10:45 in Europe, we have the Vancouver Titans taking on the Houston Outlaws. This is Houston's first game of the stage. Welcome to Stage 2, Houston Outlaws. Yeah, kind of dropped in at the deep end, didn't you? Yeah, Vancouver will win that one, I think. At 11:30 BST, or midnight in Europe, it's another debutant for Stage 2. It's Dallas Fuel taking on the Toronto Defiant. Now, this is an interesting one. I don't know what Dallas we're going to see right now, because Dallas obviously signed Note from the Boston Uprising. As it turns out, the swap for RCK has actually worked out quite well for Boston. They're doing alright at the moment. Dallas Fuel, with a stable Diva player, is nice to see. But I don't know. I don't know about Dallas sometimes. I think this will be a really close game. But I think this might be the week where Toronto bounced back slightly from up and down week 1. So I think Toronto will win that one. But it will be close. On Sunday, April the 14th, at 1:30 in the morning BST, or 2:15 in the morning in Europe, we have the Los Angeles Gladiators taking on the Guangzhou Charge. Gladiators are on the up right now. After their wobble at the start of Stage 1, they really haven't been stopped too much. They're where I expected them to be right now. And I think they have enough to see off this current Guangzhou lineup. If it had been the Guangzhou from last stage, then I would have said, this is going to be a close game. But I think Guangzhou can take a map off Gladiators here, but not win the match. Too much inconsistency from Guangzhou. I think it's going to be a long and arduous stage for Guangzhou, to be quite honest with you. At 8 PM BST on Sunday, or 9 PM in Europe, we have the Dallas Fuel in action again for their second game of the stage against the Paris Eternal. Oh, Paris. You looked good against Guangzhou, but you were playing Guangzhou. And then you got stomped. Yeah, I'm going to go for Dallas to win that one. I think that's where Dallas will get a win next week. If they get 2 wins next week, then it could be a really interesting stage for you Dallas fans. But I would go for a Dallas win over Paris right now. I think Paris, again, another team I don't trust to get jobs done, if you see what I mean. Typical Europe. Can't get jobs done. Quarter to 10 on Sunday in BST, or quarter to 11 in Europe, we have the Atlanta Reign taking on the Washington Justice. I think this is where Atlanta Reign get their things sorted out. If Atlanta lose to Washington, then Atlanta, you need to start pressing that big red panic button. Because you shouldn't be losing to Washington. You shouldn't be losing to Washington. That can't happen. Washington, stop flaming teams, because you're in no position to do it as well. Yeah, stop flaming teams. You beat Florida Mayhem. That's the only team you've beaten so far. Yeah, I kind of expect Reign to win that one. Even if Reign are, not playing well right now, I'd expect them to beat Washington Justice. Player for player, they're better. At 11:30 BST, or midnight in Europe, we have the New York Excelsior taking on the Florida Mayhem. Oh my god, this will be a short game. I can only see Excelsior winning this one. That's going to be a really, really short game, I think. And then we are going into Monday then, obviously. 1:15 in the morning BST, or 2:15 in the morning in Europe, we have the LA Derby. It's LA Valiant taking on the Los Angeles Gladiators. So this will be interesting. I think this depends on the Valiant Atlanta result, on how Gladiators do this, because if Valiant get a win over Atlanta, they're coming in with momentum, which is something Valiant haven't had for this entire season, sorry. But I still see Gladiators coming out on top, just because I think they're much more stable than Valiant are right now. I think it just depends how close it will be. If Valiant lose to Atlanta, I think this could be a 4-0 for Gladiators. If they win against Atlanta, then it could be a 5-mapper. I'd like it to be a 5-mapper. I don't want to see LA Valiant where they are in the season standings right now, because they're a team that did really well last season. So I don't want to see them where they are. As simple as that. Simple as that. I can't say it any other way. So those are your week 2 fixtures for stage 2. Interesting. It is interesting. It's going to be a big week for certain teams. Paris is one of those teams, because by the time Paris are through with this week, they will have 4 games on the board out of 7. Then you're looking at, well, are you going to qualify for stage playoffs? Because yes, perhaps Paris beat Florida, but then if they lose to Dallas, they're on a 2-2 record. It's interesting. Very mid-pack, Paris. But it's a similar thing for other teams. If New York Excelsior win both games, which they are against the Florida Mayhem and Washington Justice, I would expect New York Excelsior to go 8-0 this week. So if they do that, I think they'll be qualified, I would have thought, for the stage playoffs. So it's interesting. Again, Vancouver will be catching up with the rest of the pack because they only played 1 game last week. They play 2 games this coming week. I don't know. It's looking really interesting, and plus it's hard to predict anything right now because of the meta. All we know is Chengdu are going to run Wrecking Ball. But apart from that, London could roll out Birdring on Widowmaker against Philadelphia Fusion, and we could see a Carpe Birdring Widowmaker battle like we saw in at the end of last season, which will be incredibly entertaining if we get that. So it's really interesting, and I am really pleased with the way the stage is going right now. I don't want a clear-cut meta to develop, because we are getting so much variety, which is only good for us as viewers, I think, to be quite honest, to not know what those teams are going to run, and to see Bumper on Farah. Why? I'm going to leave it here, though. Next week could be an interesting one with Vancouver going up against Dallas and Boston. Those could be some banana skins for Vancouver. Also, please be aware that I am still iterating on this new audio setup. So, if it's not perfect right now, then I will keep iterating on it and trying to make it as good as possible. I'm just getting used to it. Never had a full-blown XLR mic before. So, I'm hoping I can get the best quality possible for you guys. And that's what matters at the end of all that. So for now, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, give it a like, subscribe if you're new, and I will see you in the next video. See you then.